Good evening, Internet, and welcome to more RPGaDay 2018. We've made it to the end of the third weekend of the month, which means that there's only one left. And this weekend's theme was all about art and music, how you can use it to draw inspiration to help yourself build characters and world build, and how you can use it to enhance the mood, the scene, and just bring your game to that next level. Today's topic was specifically about the music, and I think that there's a couple of factors that come into play when I am determining whether I'm going to use music for my session. I think that what system I'm using, who I'm playing it with, and whether I'm playing online or in person are the key factors that determine my music choice or whether I use it at all. System is important because certain systems are they lean towards a more serious narrative based game where music can really add the next level to your experience, whereas other systems are more laid back and music could serve as a distraction or you just get minimal benefit from it. Who you're playing with is important because kind of the same thing. Certain groups are going to be more serious and role play in character and focus on the story and the world building, and music can really, cinch and make those scenes more dramatic or raise the stakes or make combat more, heavy. Whereas a more laid back group or a group that just wants to get together every other week or every week, have a couple of drinks, make some tacos, roll dice, and kill goblins isn't going to get as much benefit from it. And in fact, sometimes there's a lot more side conversations going on where folks catch up because you haven't really talked since the last game or whatever. And if everyone's having to talk over each other and over the music, then it's one more bit of noise instead of an enhancement. And then finally, online versus offline. I feel like online music can be used much easier and much more effectively, whereas offline, it can be more distracting. Online, I can swap to a new map, fire up the Roll20 jukebox to play the battle music, and I'm done. Whereas when I'm playing offline behind the screen, I describe everything. I say, okay, roll for initiative, and the first thing I have to do is go to my phone to make sure that the surround sound is playing the right music appropriate for this scene. Sometimes I have my computer set up and it's a little easier, but I feel like online it's a couple of clicks and I'm done, whereas offline there's some distraction element to it. I could make a whole separate video about um, choosing to use or not use music and why I use music much less now than I did when I first started DMing. But that's a topic for another time. Today's topic is what music I use. So, what music do I use to enhance my game? Um, I specifically look for music without vocals, and I don't want it to be too up and down. I don't want sudden flares of fanfare and music and change in pace. I want kind of a steady thing all the way through. Um, and I want to be able to click between songs without it being too jarring. For my sword and sorcery, high fantasy, D&D, and dungeon world games, I look for things like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, the Hobbit soundtrack. Those are real good background for your standard role playing, even your conversations. They don't detract from them too much. And then when I swap into like combat, I'm more likely to get something from an older video game. The Warcraft series has lots of good video game fantasy music, particularly for combat. My go-to combat song is in fact Warcraft 2 Orc Battle Theme 2. I'll link down below so that you can know what I'm talking about. But it makes a real good, just like goblins jump out of the bushes, start the track. Um, I also like a lot of the Elder Scrolls game music. I feel like it can really help set the mood when I'm in those conversation scenes or when I'm describing new places, new towns, and stuff like that. And some of them can make for good dungeon exploration songs as well. Um, for my sci-fi games, I'm more prone to draw from things like Mass Effect. Mass Effect has a real good soundtrack, and some of the tracks there make good. Just overall, doesn't matter what's going on. It can be in the background, and it's not a distraction. It's an enhancement. Um, I really like the soundtrack to the original Blade Runner. I draw from 2049 a little bit as well, but the Blade Runner soundtrack can really set the mood in cyberpunk games. But it also fits pretty well in standard sci-fi, and even my Star Wars games have benefited from it. Um, for those kind of games, Firefly's soundtrack um, fits in pretty well. It can fit in with Western stuff, but you can slap it on sci-fi games, and it fits all right. Um, but then the folks that make Bastion, the video game Bastion, their second game Transistor has a lot of good tracks that fit in kind of grittier cyberpunk and sci-fi games. Some of them have vocals, and I try to avoid vocals, like I said, but some of the tracks from Transistor are really versatile. And then for my cyberpunk specifically, even though I can use a lot of my sci-fi music for my cyberpunk games, sometimes I'll bring in more like synthwave kind of songs. There's lots and lots of it on YouTube and around the internet. Um, you have to worry more about vocals on them, not necessarily for the song, but just the genre of music tends to borrow a lot from old 80s sci-fi and have some kind of word to them. Normally it's not too bad though, so depending on the right track, they make great like um, retro cyberpunk backgrounds. Um, but I don't know if I really want to sit here and just list types of music or whether I should be using exact tracks. So I'm going to kind of trail off here at the end and say that if you have questions about specific systems and stuff like that, throw them in the comments below and I'll go, oh, you're playing blank. This is what I was using last time I was playing blank. But for now, music really depends on lots of factors, like I said. And maybe I'll come back and I'll make that other video where I talk about the factors in deciding whether I use music or not. But I don't have too much more of this answer because more often than not now I'm prone to not use music. Um, it was something I did a lot when I first started GMing, but now I find it less useful. Not that it isn't useful, just for the style of games that I've been running lately, it's diminishing returns, I guess I'll say. I get less out of it than I want. And so instead of finding the right music for the scene, I take that energy and I focus more on making sure that I, the GM, am putting more effort into setting that scene more correctly in my descriptions and in the way that I carry myself, if that makes sense. But again, comments below, talk about whatever system, and I'll jump in and go, oh, you're playing blank. The last time I was playing that, I really liked the soundtrack to this game or this movie, and we'll talk about more specific tracks if you guys have any questions.